What's going on? My name is David Page. I'm a professional guitarist and singer, and my wife Stephanie and I work as musicians on board cruise ships. We're currently contracted to work on the Norwegian Viva, and we just got back from a 2-month vacation. Over the course of the past few months, all of the entertainers that we opened the ship with have completed their contract and moved on to their next gigs. Meanwhile, a whole brand new cast has joined the ship, and we are going to be relaunching Ocean Music Fest this week. So we're going to take you backstage and behind the scenes to show you the whole process of relaunching Ocean Music Fest. Alright, listen, here's the deal. This video is taking me forever to do. My original thought was to create a vlog that outlined the entire process, rehearsal after tech run after sound check, but it's taking me forever and it is not going to be fun to watch. So you're gonna get the abridged version. Before we get into this, I wanna make sure that you know everybody that we are talking about, so I'm gonna give you a quick rapid fire introduction of all of the instrumentalists and vocalists for Ocean Music Fest. Now that you've met everybody, let's talk about the timeline. So Stephanie and I signed on to the Viva in Puerto Rico on Sunday, March 17th. We had the rest of Sunday and Monday to get reacclimated to the ship before starting Ocean Music Fest rehearsals on Tuesday the 19th. However, during those first 2 days, we were still immediately implemented into the standard lounge musician performance schedule. On the 19th, which was day 3 of the cruise, we started our rehearsal schedule. And this rehearsal was in the Sid Norman's poorhouse. The instrumentalists had a run through by themselves before the vocalists joined. While Ian, Carlos, and Ben got to enjoy a little bit of a break here, Hercules ran through the run of show with the vocalists. The problem is that we only got through about half of the songs before the band was scheduled to rejoin us, and then with the instrumentalists, we made it to about the same halfway point before our scheduled rehearsal time had expired. The parts of the songs that we did get to felt really good. We got to work on some of the vocal harmonies and make sure that all of the songs were in the correct key. We ironed out some form issues for some of the songs. However, because we didn't get to everything in that rehearsal, Stephanie and I walked away from that feeling a little bit uneasy and a little unsure of how the rest of this rehearsal schedule was going to go and whether or not we would be able to effectively open the show on time. Day 4 of this sailing was March 20th, and we had our next rehearsal scheduled. This time we were going to be in the theater, on the stage, working through a tech rehearsal at the same time. This rehearsal was jam-packed. We had 3 massive focuses. Focus number 1, make sure that we got through all of the songs that we didn't get to the day before. Priority number 2, make sure that all of our tech is running properly. We have a sound engineer, we have a lighting engineer, we have 2 spotlight operators, we have 3 or 4 different tech hands on the stage, and we also have a stage manager who's running the whole show. Everyone needs to be on the same page, and so we were using this time to simultaneously rehearse all of them doing their parts. And the third major focus of this rehearsal was to start working on the blocking, so where different people are standing for different parts of the show. When Stephanie and I opened this show on the Viva in September, there were 5 vocalists. And now we're coming back into the show and there are 6 vocalists now, and we don't have a director to tell us how to do the show, how to re-block everything, so we're having to figure this out on our own. We did make it through all of the different parts that we had to get through, and I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more confident that things were progressing in the right direction. We did, however, run into a massive issue. The bass player from the Sid Norman's band was starting to have some issues with tendonitis in his hands and wrist and starting to experience some massive discomfort. After our rehearsal in the theater, he had to go to medical and he was effectively signed off for the rest of the sailing. That means that medical has not cleared him for work, and so he is unable to play bass for the rest of the rehearsal process or even the opening show. And a couple of issues with finding a replacement bass player is that if I were to step back and play bass in that, then it removes me as one of the vocalists from the main part of the stage, and now all of a sudden all of my vocal songs are going to have to go to other vocalists who don't know those songs. If the bass player from the classic tones were to step up and be the substitute bass player for this show, the live music that we have going on out in the atrium during Ocean Music Fest isn't going to happen anymore, and now guests are going to feel like there isn't a lot of options around the ship at the same time as Ocean Music Fest. And the third option would be bringing in the theater production bass player. And the issue with that is that he's already stepping in to fill in for the Sid Norman's Rumors show and the Sid Norman's Prom show. So he's already learning 2 entire shows to perform on this sailing in addition to his standard performance responsibilities. Not to mention all of the additional rehearsal scheduling that's now having to happen for the Sid Norman's band as they bring in this other bass player. At this point, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and I was genuinely concerned that the show was not going to open. So we're going into day 5 of this sailing. That's March 21st. We had a vocal rehearsal scheduled to be in the Sid Norman's poorhouse. This rehearsal was set so that we could work on all of the vocal arrangements now that there are 6 vocalists.
And you're too so what?
Typically when you're putting together a vocal group, you would aim to have all of the different parts represented: a soprano, an alto, a tenor, a baritone, and a bass. However, with this particular group of people, we have 2 sopranos and 4 tenors. So without the parts being so obvious to all of us that we would just step into our natural vocal sections, we're having to listen to each other a lot and have some discussions about who's going to sing which parts.
The 3 on that sounds so good.
Woo! This rehearsal went so well, and we were able to all work together to create a really incredible vocal arrangement for the entire show. The hard thing is that no matter how good we felt about this vocal rehearsal, we were still unsure about what was going to happen over the next couple of days and whether or not there was even going to be a show. Day 6 of this sailing was March 22nd. In order to make sure that the Sid Norman's band had time in order to rehearse their Rumors show as well as their Prom show, where they needed to be working with this replacement bass player, there was no Ocean Music Fest rehearsal scheduled for the day. However, throughout this entire time, all of us still had our typical performance schedule. For the lounge musicians, on a 7-day cruise, we had 6 days of performances with 3 sets every day. For the Sid Norman instrumentalists that were playing with us, they had 5 additional shows with the vocalists that they typically perform with, in addition to our Ocean Music Fest performance on day 7. It was on day 6 of the cruise that Greg stepped up and saved the show. Greg is the piano player and the musical director for the theater production show on our ship, Beetlejuice. With Ben out of the show and no other options available, Greg decided he was going to step up. He already knew the show and he had helped put together the charts for the bass player in the first place, so he was going to step up and play bass on the keyboards and save Ocean Music Fest. Now, day 7 of this sailing was absolutely insane for everyone.
I don't have anything here.
I changed nothing. Something is wrong with the keyboard.
Hang on.
All right, stand by.
That's gotta be a little faster transition, levitating there.
There's no cue.
On top of a full tech run and a sound check for Ocean Music Fest, the theater was also going to have a full tech run and sound check for Prom. Typically, you're only going to have one of these major productions in the theater on any given night. However, since this show was reopening, we needed all of that rehearsal time, and it turned out that they needed all of that rehearsal time for Prom as well. And since Prom is always scheduled for the last day of the sailing, they decided they were going to have Prom and Ocean Music Fest on the same night. That meant that our instrumentalists were going to be working all day long, focused on 2 different shows with back-to-back rehearsals and back-to-back shows. It also meant that all of the theater techs were going to be going through the same insane day that the instrumentalists were. And as for the lounge musicians, well, we still had our 3 regularly scheduled performances squished in between our rehearsal and our production show performance. I'm so grateful that Greg came into this last tech rehearsal, his only shot to run through these songs with us, so well prepared. He already knew all of the parts, so getting him set up and put into the show was so easy, and it felt really good to know that the low end was going to be there and that we were going to be able to open the show on time. The show wasn't perfect, but it was so good. It was really helpful that Stephanie and Daniel and I had all opened the show and worked so closely with the directors, and that Nicola had had plenty of experience both with us and then carrying the torch after Stephanie and I left our last contract here. Daniela and Jonathan were brand new to this show, but they worked so hard and they stepped up in every possible way, and week over week they continue to take on more harmonies and add more and more to the show. Hercules, Ian, and Carlos also care so much about this show, and they put in so much work to make sure that their parts are right and that they're grooving well as a band. And all of the extra work that Greg put in to step in last minute and save Ocean Music Fest was just outstanding. If you happen to find yourself on the Norwegian Viva, make sure you check out Ocean Music Fest. It's a show that you won't want to miss. If you want to find out a little bit more about what life is like for a cruise ship musician, check out this video next where you can find a tour of the cabin that Stephanie and I live in for 9 months out of the year. See you in the next video.